Mike and Virginia Chevalier are not only diehard Denver Broncos fans, but they have supported DNVR for a long time. As DNVR members, they're a husband-wife team with over 15 years of financial services experience. Since your home is likely to be one of your largest assets and your mortgage your largest debts, they believe it's vital to consider your full financial picture when purchasing a home. That includes considering your short-term and long-term planning goals, your investments, and your tax situation. Mike and Virginia will work tirelessly to find the best loan for your situation. You can visit them at dnvrmortgage.com, where you can enter to win some DNVR swag. But whatever you do, when you need some advice on what to do for your mortgage, make sure you call Chevalier Mortgage at 303-257-6578. Michael Chevalier, NMLS number 1931006, and Virginia Chevalier, NMLS number 1910631.
Number one for the one and only DNVR. Two goes out to Zach Mace, RK, and the bar. Three for Mr. B in that old trophy case. Number four, we're still waiting for. Well, bring on the chase. Out on the field, a mile high, Broncos win is our desire. Couple with a breakfast crew and a friendly orange and blue till the bitter end. Come and join us at the DNVR. We are DNVR.
Welcome in to the DNVR Broncos podcast, presented by MSU Denver Online. Make sure you head over to msudenver.edu/online to scope out all they have to offer. 750 classes, 40 hybrid programs, everything you could possibly need. Rigorous and affordable education taught by professors who bring the real world into the classroom. So head over to msudenver.edu/online today.
My boys, what's up? So pumped to be rolling with you guys and on this live pod. I love it.
Little live action here on a Wednesday morning. I'm a little tired because the other, 2 nights, or I guess it was Monday night, I couldn't sleep because the Nuggets loss was so painful. Last night I couldn't sleep because the Nuggets win was so exhilarating. So I guess the Nuggets they're just not going to let me sleep, at all.
Man, what a game. Just pretty much dominated, 57 minutes of the game right now. Life is back, although life was always with these guys. You gotta close the door on them completely to put them out, and boy, that's not happening now.
Yeah, real catch-22 awaits the Lakers. You either win and go up 3-1, which is a death sentence, or you're tying the series at 2-2.
So what do you want if you're the Lakers?
I think the goal is usually to win, but I didn't even think about the fact that it was a catch 2-2.
Exactly.
Ooh. But 3-1 has been 3-1 is a dangerous situation. So yeah, I don't think it'll be much of a catch 2-2 for the Lakers if they get into it, but it's good to see the Nuggets fight back, and you knew they would because they fought back the entire postseason. So I'm not surprised they came out as they did. You withstand a couple of runs from the Lakers in the second half. All good. Happy day, beautiful day here in the Mile High City. The sun is out. The sky is getting bluer after being smoke strangled. All is well. And into that is going to come Tom Brady on Sunday.
Yeah, and I think there's some parallels that you can draw between the Nuggets in this playoffs and the Broncos and what they have to deal with. Now, if the Nuggets lost all of their good players, like the Broncos almost have, it might be a different conversation. But, I was talking about this last night with the Nuggets guys, and I said 99% of teams would have wilted after Anthony Davis hit that dagger shot in game 2, and it should have been 1-1, and now it's 0-2, and now you're fighting uphill battle. And the Nuggets just got stronger somehow. And the Broncos have to find a way to channel that sort of energy. How can you take the fact that you're without your starting quarterback, your best offensive player, your best defensive player, 4 of your 6 Pro Bowlers, all this stuff, and use it to fortify you and make you stronger internally? You're not going to get more talented. You're not going to get better. but you do have to get stronger some way. You have to get more mentally tough. You have to believe that no matter how difficult things get, you have the guys next to you, and that's all you need. And I think the way that the Broncos responded in that Pittsburgh game was a good sign towards that. Now it's up to them to keep it rolling, despite the fact that even though they showed a lot of gutsy effort and really, dragged themselves off the pavement to pull themselves back into that game, they didn't get the payoff. So can they be more mentally tough than any of the teams that they play on the field? Because that's the only way they're going to win games.
Yeah, physically, you're not going to get stronger. You're not going to get more talented. But mentally, Ryan, you nailed it. You got to get smarter. And that's with everyone on this Broncos organization. It starts with bringing in the right guys who need to replace these guys. So it starts with John, but then really the onus is on the coaching staff. How much are you going to change the offense to fit Jeff Driskel? If you don't want to mess with all of these young pieces on the offense, I get it. But then you're probably not going to be able to develop the best offense for Jeff Driskel. I would be okay with the Broncos, changing a lot of things up in these next couple of weeks. And you're not doing anything crazy, but a lot more RPOs going on. Let Jeff Driskel run the ball a lot. And then you can go back to your normal offense once Drew comes back. So you got to get smarter. And then the players, they have to get smarter. They're going to have to play mistake-free football. Guys, that's always so important in the NFL, obviously. But what happens if Cortland Sutton, the ball doesn't go through his hands and there's no interception there? We very well may be talking about a Broncos win. And so it's mistake-free football, playing smarter, not making mistakes, and then also the coaching staff developing a different game plan and not being afraid to do that.
And I don't think you should be afraid to do that just because you've got a bunch of young players, because you're not changing the nomenclature. And presumably you've worked on some of these concepts before. So you're just basically changing the points of emphasis a little bit. And if you're asking young players to do something that's slightly different, so what? You're just trying to learn what their skill sets are, what their strengths are, so you can turn this into a positive. The thing that I would actually like to see a little more of is more youth. And that youth I'd like to see that's not getting playing time just yet is Albert Okwuegbunam. And see him get some run, see some 2 tight end sets that involve both him and Noah Fant running routes. No offense to the wide receivers, because you can still go 3 wide from time to time, but the most dangerous formations this team has with Jeff Driskel running RPOs might be 2 tight end sets.
Yeah, I think you can learn a lot from the way that the Philadelphia Eagles have used Dallas Goedert and Zach Ertz. Pull up that tape and watch how Ertz takes so much of the attention from the defense that it just gives so much space to operate for Goddard, who is a similarly talented player. He's quick, on probably 25 teams at least in the NFL. He's their number one option at tight end. So, Albert Okwuegbunam is not quite there yet. He's not, as good as Dallas Goedert. But you can take from that and say, okay, teams are going to start to realize that Noah Fant is our biggest threat on offense. They're going to dedicate a lot of resources towards stopping him. Let's put in Albert Okwuegbunam and see how he can take advantage of one-on-one matchups, not only just one-on-one, but one-on-one with their second best option for covering the tight end. That should be a really juicy place for him to be, and he doesn't have to do anything complicated. He just has to run drag routes and other things that get the ball in his hands.
I love it. I absolutely love that idea. I just think you guys are getting a little greedy, because that's what I do. But first, let's focus on Noah Fant for an entire game, and that's what the Broncos need to start off with. Hey, I'm not disagreeing with you guys at all. But that's what needs to start this week is Noah Fant, 5 targets each half, not just in one half, in both halves. Get him involved. And hey, you know what? And Albert Okwuegbunam could only help Noah Fant. If you have him on the other side, yes, of course, that's not going to take a ton of attention away from Noah Fant. But if Albert O catches a 17-yard pass, well, then the defense may pay a little more attention. That's just only going to help Noah Fant.
Well, yeah, it's amazing that Noah Fant is sitting there among the leaders in receiving yards and touchdowns among tight ends, and basically he's only played one game for the most part, or he's played, but has only been a focus of the offense for one game. You've got to get him the ball. I agree with you, Zach. 5 targets a half is actually a good number to think of right now as you're trying to open things up. As I point out in my article, I mean, the Broncos literally average more than twice as many points per possession when they get Fant the football than they do when they don't.
Yeah.
That's huge.
Speaking of tape that they should look at, go back and watch what the Raiders did to the Saints on Monday Night Football. Like, they found their mismatch and they went to it and they went to it and they went to it and they made the Saints switch who they were trying to guard Darren Waller with, and they couldn't, and they just kept going to him, like, and they just bludgeoned the Saints defense to death with one mismatch. I mean, one. Is all they needed was, you can't cover Darren Waller, so we're going to throw to him until you beg for mercy. And eventually the Saints did.
Yeah, and after the game, John Gruden said Darren Waller's the best tight end in the game. What would he be saying about Noah Fant if he had Noah Fant instead of Darren Waller? And he had 12 targets in the game, I believe. Yeah. I mean, that's what you should be doing with Noah Fant, even when you have Cortland Sutton the way that Noah Fant's been playing. Now you don't have Cortland Sutton, and you have a backup quarterback. A tight end is a backup quarterback's best friend. Guys, it's so simple. And unfortunately, this should be very easy for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers to game plan against. You say, we are not letting Noah Fant beat us, but Noah Fant can't beat you if you're not throwing him the ball.
The other thing is the Steelers, they put Devin Bush on Noah Fant. So it's not like they ignored him, and Noah Fant ate his lunch when he had the opportunity. And that's why it's interesting. Remember the 2019 draft, we were all talking about the Devons. You saw Devin Bush last Sunday. Now you're going to see Devin White, who himself is off to a very good start this year and has shown a lot of coverage capability. But if Noah Fant just devoured Devin Bush, I think you test Devin White as well to see if he can keep pace with Noah Fant.
I think you're right. I think you got to test everyone to see if they can keep pace with Noah Fant, because he's 6'5", 250 pounds, and he runs 4.5. Like, good luck, Again, going back to that Monday night game, they tried putting Malcolm Jenkins on Darren Waller, and up until this point in his career, he's been considered a tight end stopper, and he had no chance. I mean, they got him off of him as fast as they possibly could because he was just getting bodied play in, play out. So Broncos, I'd love to see them do that. It feels like it's been since Peyton Manning where you saw the Broncos expose a mismatch and just keep going to it until the other team begs for mercy. I'd love to see Pat Shurmur and this offense decide that, hey, we're not going to let anyone slow us down. We're going to do this thing on our terms.
Yeah, exactly. And obviously another target that you're hitting, at least I think that you're going off after often, is Jerry Jeudy. I mean, the talent is clearly there. Maybe get him some easy passes where he doesn't have to worry about catching, and just at least at the beginning of the game, just to get that out of his head mentally, because we've seen when he gets the ball in his hands, I mean, it's just a Chris Berman whoop whoop, and it is so good, so fun. But guys, I think that's about the extent of the passing we should be talking about here. The Broncos need to run the ball, and unfortunately, they don't have Phillip Lindsay this week, may not have him for a couple more weeks after this week. So Melvin Gordon, man, this is on you to keep the Broncos afloat, because while getting Noah Fant, Jerry Jeudy involved is important, you got to be able to run the ball. And that does include Jeff Driskel as well.
I wish I could agree with you, Zach, but it's not going to be possible. Teams are going to say, like they have for years, against the Broncos, when the Broncos have a mediocre at best quarterback, which you would probably make the case that mediocre would be a compliment at this point. They're going to say, we're going to stack the box, we're going to run blitz, and we are going to force you to beat us with your arm. The running game, even from a fantasy perspective, if anyone out there is listening from that perspective, I would not be starting Melvin Gordon this week, even though he is the main back on a team that needs to run the ball, because I think that any defense they face until Jeff Driskel proves otherwise is going to say, go ahead and beat us with your arm, because we are going to take away the run.
But one thing with Melvin Gordon is that if they take away the run, fine, but he's still capable of getting into space and making plays in the passing game, as we saw last Sunday. So when they're taking one aspect of Melvin Gordon away, it doesn't mean they're taking all of Melvin Gordon away. You get a mismatch like you had with him against Vince Williams running that wheel route to the pylon, then you're going to be able to capitalize, and you're still going to be able to get him in the end zone.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Ryan, I'm happy that you brought that point up because I totally see where you're coming from, but I totally disagree because if Jeff Driscoll's the one that's forced to beat you these next 4 to 6 weeks, I think you're looking at no wins. Maybe one win you could get against the Jets, but holy cow. I mean, who are you taking with the Dolphins game? Are you taking Ryan Fitzpatrick or are you taking Jeff Driskel? Give me Ryan Fitzpatrick. Now, you could pick him off like 7 times like he does occasionally and win the game, but oh my goodness, that scares me to death. I think if the Broncos aren't able to establish something of a running game, and hey, maybe it's not running 6 yards per carry or 5 yards per carry. Maybe it's the Derrick Henry way of doing it. 31 carries for 111 yards. But that is going to be some serious commitment from Pat Shurmur that I don't necessarily see happening.
Well, you've also got to keep it a close game in order to pull that off. That's the other thing. If you fall behind early, that capability just evaporates. And it's one reason why you go back to week 1. If you get that 4th and goal touchdown in the second quarter, you're changing Derrick Henry's output because maybe the Titans are behind for most of the second half, and maybe they find themselves in a position where they have to throw the ball. Maybe the Broncos are even up 2 scores at a point in the second half, and they're having to go away from Derrick Henry. So you've got to keep the game manageable. The other thing is you accept that you're not going to beat people with Jeff Driscoll's arm, but you want to beat these opponents with the targets, and that's why with Jerry Jeudy and Noah Fant, what can both of these guys do? They can make people miss. They can get yardage after the catch. So you don't have to push it downfield. You can get it to them short, let their improvisational ability, their ability to make people miss, come to the fore, and then accumulate yardage after the catch without getting Jeff Driskel in a position to try to make throws that he can't make on a consistent basis.
I'd like to see the Broncos show me why they signed Jeff Driskel as their backup quarterback, because I was sure it was based on the fact that he brings a extra element to the game, which is his ability to run. We're talking about a legitimate track star here, not just a guy like Drew Lock who can get out and move outside of the pocket. Jeff Driskel is a running quarterback, and that's what he proved in college. And even, I remember the Broncos went up against Jeff Driskel when he was the quarterback in Cincinnati for a couple games. And in that game, Cincinnati used his wheels a lot. And if I remember correctly, he had a couple big chunks on the Broncos with keepers. So I can't imagine the Broncos brought in Jeff Driskel to be their backup quarterback because they think he's a good pocket passer. I think they brought him in because they like, okay, if we're going to have a backup quarterback in there, let's at least give him a chance to move around, especially behind some questionable offensive line play. So show me that. I mean, on offense, I think you have to add that element in to at least give the defense something to think about.
This is where you discombobulate a defense, right? I mean, that's you do things off script. And oh, by the way, Jeff Driskel, his time speed at least, it's 4.56. Cortland Sutton's a 4.54 guy. I mean, so Driskel has legit wheels. He has receiver speed.
So that's how you replace Cortland Sutton. Just throw Jeff Driskel on the outside, Brett Rippon or Blake Bortles in on the inside. And really quick, speaking of Blake Bortles, Ryan, what's your take?
Oh, my take is great signing. If Blake Bortles plays, there's only 2 options. Option 1, Blake Bortles shocks the world. Option 2, tasty memes. You got to find a way to stay. You got to find a way to stay interesting. And if Blake Bortles plays, I guarantee a few people will just want to see what happens.
Yeah, he's going to be an interesting character for sure. But now back to using Jeff Driscoll's strengths and on the run. Also, if you're doing RPOs and sending him on the run, well, then that's going to help your tight ends even more. Because either if the linebackers stay on your tight ends, Jeff Driskel turns up, should get 5 yards. If the linebackers pull and come to Jeff Driskel, well, boom, easy pass to the tight end where Noah Fant's getting the ball 5 yards downfield, and then he gets the ball in his hands and can make plays. So I think there's no downside with that. We've seen Jeff Driskel play and use his athleticism, and he knows how to use it. He's not a guy that is going to be taking big hits and pitching the ball when he shouldn't be. So I think you have to lean on that. If you want to win games, you got to get creative here.
Yeah, absolutely. And I talked about the fact that I don't think they're going to run the ball. You talked about the fact that you don't think they're going to be able to win on Jeff Driskel's arm. And that's why it leads me to this isn't really about the offense if the Broncos are going to stay afloat while Drew Lock is out. It's completely about the defense. They have to be better than they were in week 1, better than they were in week 2. They have to be dominant if the Broncos are going to stay afloat while Drew Lock is out, because the offense is not going to score 25, 26, 27 points. If you're expecting that, you're going to lose. You need to win the game with 17 points. That should be their goal going into every single week. Is we're going to have to probably get a turnover, give Jeff Driskel a short field, score there. We'll get a field goal drive at some point, and maybe on the script, the original script or the second half script, we'll score a touchdown off that. Like, that is the formula. You got to win. You got to give up 17 or less points every single week if you're the defense.
Okay, can you hold the Bucs to 17 or fewer then?
I think you can.
It's there's promise from the offense, but this is where you catch a break playing them in week 3 rather than in week 10. Gronk, for example, hasn't been involved in the offense at all to this point. He's got 2 catches. Mike Evans had a good game last Sunday, missed week 1. The concern I have is the fact that they will have Mike Evans, who appears to be back to health, and Chris Godwin back from missing a concussion last Sunday. And then O.J. Howard already has a touchdown this year. So, and Scott Miller is making some plays in the short area game. So you know what? You've got a team now that is starting to develop that multi-layered array of targets to really kind of force defenses into pick your poison mode a little bit. It's not where it's going to be in a couple of months, I think, but it might be enough against a secondary that's coming off of a rough day.
It's going to come down to turnovers for this defense, something that we really haven't seen them to have success with in a year under Vic Fangio, and especially the start of this season. Ryan, maybe the difference with the Tennessee game is getting 1 turnover and setting up a short field for Drew. Now you're going to have to do that because the Broncos defense still held them to 16 points. They were good. That you could say they were great that game, but they have to be elite. And that's a tough task when obviously you don't have Von Miller, you don't have AJ Boye for the next couple of weeks, but that's what it's going to come down to. And you need to be jumping some passes. You need to be taking some risks as this Broncos defense, because you could have maybe won that Tennessee game if you set up a short field for your offense by getting at least 1 turnover, but they weren't even able to do that.
And remember the Tennessee game, Stephen Gostkowski bailed out the Broncos defense because he left 10 points on the board. The Titans offense, and also the Broncos with a giveaway that set up a short field for the touchdown, but the Titans offense really could have had a 26-point night that night. And the Steelers had would have had 24, or they did have 24, but then the safety was tacked on top of that. So that's basically 25 points a game that your defense is giving up right now, and that's not going to work. Although that being said, you've had short fields both times. So like you guys have mentioned, you can't keep turning the ball over. You can't create short fields. Your margin for error right now is like this.
Yeah, and it was already small before you lost all these guys. We got a question coming in from Trev LA1 or Trevla1, who says, any reason Drew has not been placed on injured reserve yet? This is, maybe the best news I would say so far. That timeline they said is 2 to 6 weeks. The fact that he has not been placed on IR yet tells me that they think there's still, even if it's a slim chance, a chance that Drew is back after 2 weeks.
You're talking about a bruise, right? I mean, that's the thing. I mean, you get past a certain point, if it's healing quickly, it becomes a discomfort tolerance thing for Drew Lock. Yep. Can he tolerate that? And it's possible that he could be healing well and he could push his way back onto the field sooner rather than later. So keeping him off IR is the wise play.
Yeah, and this is actually my question to Vic Fangio today, because maybe they do have some intel that, but we thought it was going to be a little worse than it was. We're already getting positive feedback That would obviously be huge to get, because right now I'm just planning on Drew being out on the longer side just to kind of plan for the worst. And then maybe you get the best news of that he's back in 2 weeks. And also, let's say Drew's not ready to play in that third game, but you didn't put him on IR, but he's able to practice a little bit. Hey, every single practice that Drew can get, if he can get one extra practice by not being on the IR, then that is well worth the roster spot in my mind.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of pain tolerance, I don't know if you guys saw this today, but some NFL news this morning that literally made me sick to my stomach. Chargers team doctor accidentally punctured his own quarterback Tyrod Taylor's lung before kickoff Sunday while trying to administer a pain-killing injection to the quarterback's cracked ribs.
Oh.
That's just like, I just feel so bad for Tyrod Taylor. I don't know. Like I said, I read that and like literally my heart dropped. It just feels so wrong.
Oh my gosh.
No wonder he wasn't able to play. Holy cow.
He's Alvin Harper 2.0. When Alvin Harper played in the 1990s, the team trainer was trying to tape up his finger and literally sliced it open.
Oh my God.
Yikes.
Medical staff malpractice. Ugh.
Yeah. I mean, unfortunately, this is just the most Chargers thing ever. We know that they are always just riddled with injuries and in crazy ways, and this is just another one. Now, fortunately for them, Justin Herbert came in and proved that he was pretty darn good, at least in that first game. But they're maintaining that Tyrod's their quarterback when healthy.
Yeah, that didn't make sense to me. That was very clearly a performance from your rookie quarterback where you say, all right, this kid's ready to go. On the other hand, man, it's messed up for a guy to lose his job because your doctor stuck a needle through his lung.
Seriously.
So anyways, that just reminded me of that. But it could come down to simply pain tolerance for Drew. And if I know anything about Drew Lock, he's going to want to play. I mean, he wanted to play on Sunday. He didn't want to come out of that game. He thought, he probably thought, just give me some painkillers and let's go. And so I think there is a chance, now that we know there's not any structural damage to Drew Lock's shoulder, which is just, the Broncos lucked out in that regard. I think you might see him play sooner than later because that's just the type of player that he is. He's going to want to be out there for his guys.
So there's a question, or I guess a point coming in from Corey Jones, and he says, I would not rush Lock back. We've said this about a lot of players. No, don't rush him. Don't rush him. Would you guys be okay with rushing Drew back?
So now that you know that it's not structural, it changes things a little bit. Now, that bruise, I assume, is, more than just a little bump on your arm. This is probably an ugly, ugly bruise. And so what you do have is a situation where if he gets hit and he's putting a lot of stress on that bruise, he can regress in terms of his comfort level. It's going to hurt more. And so if you do wait 4 weeks or so and get him actually fully healthy back, the advantage there is you're not worried about him re-injuring it. And you're not worried about him, dealing with the pain if you wait for it. The other side of it, though, is just everything we've been talking about here. The Broncos, without Drew Lock, have a very slim chance of winning football games. And so if he tells Vic Fangio, Coach, I'm good to go, like, I can play, jobs are on the line here, or a lot of people think jobs are on the line here. I don't think Vic Fangio is going to tell his quarterback, hey, too soon, man. I know you feel good, but we don't want to put you out there. I don't see that. If Drew says he's ready, he's going to go. And so if there was structural damage, I would be saying you wait until he is 100% ready to go. But when it comes down to a pain thing, and not really a risk of serious injury because of just a bruise, I don't think the Broncos are going to use the abundance of caution.
Now, what
That's
about
fair.
Because it is on his throwing arm, though, and maybe some pain? Instead of throwing the ball 100%, he's throwing the ball 70 or 80%. How do you balance that? Because, Ryan, I do agree with you with that.
And that's where the discomfort thing comes in. I mean, if he is not comfortable enough to have full range of motion when he throws, like if that pain is limiting him, then it's on the shelf. And it's going to be as much a mental thing in that regard, potentially, as a physical thing.
Yeah, and Drew owes it to his teammates to not go out there before he can play good football.
Right. That's a good point. And to me, guys, I feel bad overlooking Tom Brady, but to me, this all comes back to the New York Jets in 8 days from now. If the Broncos lose that game, they're 0-4. We already talked about what an 0-4 start looks like. And of course, if they're not able to pull off the upset this week, we already know what an 0-4 start looks like because we saw it last year and we know how difficult the odds are to overcome it. Then are you rushing him back to play the Patriots? Of course, the Broncos don't just want to give up and lose games. No, but then there's more of a reason to say, we want Drew to be 100% when he plays so that we can get a true sample size and see if he's our guy in the final 9 games after the bye week. Now, if you beat the Jets, let's say you were competitive with the Bucs, then John Elway's not going to just give in. You have 10 days from the Jets game to the Patriots game, then that's when I can see Drew playing on an 80% shoulder, given that it's an 80% bruise, not an 80% tendon or ligament, anything going on.
Yeah, if you had a tendon ligament injury, if this was an AC joint like originally reported, then you know what, you're sitting him on the shelf, and you know what, you might need Drew Lock in that game because you're going to New England, and Cam Newton's dad isn't going to be playing in that game, unfortunately, because Von Miller's on the shelf. So you need all the help you can get from the offense.
Yeah, it's true. And Cam, my goodness, does he look good?
Yeah, he's already the comeback player of the year in all likelihood.
Yeah. If there's ever a chance for a quarterback to win an award, they're going to make sure they get it.
Especially a Patriots quarterback.
And to this point, he absolutely looks like he deserves that award. Going head-to-head with Russell Wilson the other night, one play away from beating Russell Wilson, really. Only thing is perfect time for the jump pass. How did they not call the jump pass?
Oh, my gosh. That's what I thought, too. You at least send one guy into the end zone, right?
Yeah, I was like, oh, here it comes. Yep. They've set this up all game. It's just like when the quarterback's giving the zone read all game, and then in the most important moment he pulls it. I was just like, oh man, this Seahawks defense is going to sell out to stop the Cam sneak. Everyone in the world thinks that's what's coming. All you got to do is just leak the tight end out, pop it over the top, game over.
So easy, and that's exactly what they did. They sold out 100% to stop Cam.
Because as a defense, you can't plan for both things. And so you're saying we're not losing on the play that they just have scored at will on us tonight. We're going to make sure we take that away. If they get us with a little misdirection, oh well.
Yep. Oh, guys, and speaking of other quarterbacks around the league, now doctors are telling Tyrod Taylor not to play indefinitely due to that punctured lung. The Chargers just announced that it will be Justin Herbert this week. Man, I feel so bad for Tyrod. He's actually a good quarterback, and it just feels like he's gotten the short end of the stick pretty much every single place he's been.
He's a good quarterback. He's not spectacular, but he's good for a certain type of team that is built around defense, the running game, and short to intermediate targets. So he actually was a good fit for the Chargers, I thought. I kind of like the signing of Tyrod Taylor to keep that team afloat. Now they'll force Justin Herbert in, and if he's out indefinitely, I think Herbert's going to struggle because now a lot of what he did Sunday was the element of surprise. No film. Chiefs hadn't prepared for him. Now you're going to have teams that prepare for him, and I think Justin Herbert's going to, in terms of his play, regress a little bit, but continue to grow in terms of his viability as a quarterback. By the time Tyrod Taylor gets healthy, it might be Justin Herbert's job, and Tyrod Taylor might be becoming this modern day Steve DeBerg, to harken back to an old Bronco quarterback who kept going around the league. Steve DeBerg was the quarterback before Joe Montana. Then he was the quarterback in Denver before John Elway. Then he goes to Tampa and he's the quarterback before Steve Young. They trade Steve Young. They keep DeBerg. He's the quarterback before Vinny Testaverde. This may be Tyrod Taylor's lot in life at this point, to be the guy who is the cushion between an old era and a new QB.
Yeah, and this goes in, and this would be a long conversation, maybe a whole day in an off-season pod, but it's something that I think is undercovered in the NFL, and that is the lack of trust between players and team medical personnel. It exists, and it's just not talked about a lot. And this is one of the reasons now. It's not usually just because they're not good at their jobs. In fact, a lot of these guys really are good at their jobs. But a lot of players don't trust team medical personnel. Some of it is because they think that they are more concerned about the team's interest than the players' interest. Some of it is because they don't think they're as good as some of the outside places they can go, especially because they have the money to pay for whatever they want. But it's an interesting dynamic in the NFL, and I promise you that a lot of the Chargers are looking across the locker room today, being like, "Yeah, I don't trust these people."
And it's the Chargers, right? This could only happen to the Chargers.
Yep.
I mean, the team that is probably more snake bit by major injuries over the years than anybody else. Well, a lot of those injuries are football injuries. This is one that you're inflicting upon yourself as an organization. This is next level for the San Diego / LA Chargers.
Real quick, we got a commenter here say he's going off to work. We'll see you later, Ashton. Thanks for tuning in with us. Have a good day at work. But yeah, so I think the moral of the story here, and to circle back to our headline of this show, how the Denver Broncos stay afloat during Drew Lock's injury, whether that's 2 weeks or 6 weeks, it really comes down to being creative on offense, getting Jeff Driskel into easy reads and easy situations, taking advantage of his legs, finding a way to run the ball. And I forgot to mention this, and I think it is important, that Melvin Gordon is the second best running back in the NFL since he came in the league at running against stacked boxes. So that's going to be very important for him to show that value over the next couple of weeks. And then it just comes down to the defense. They have to get off the field on third downs, and they have to get a better pass rush.
And remember, Pat Shurmur's been taking a lot of heat, justifiably so. But remember what he did back in 2017 when Case Keenum got thrust into the lineup? Turned Case Keenum into something he had never been before. And played to his strengths. Had him running play action, something he was very good at. And then a year later, in our various forums, we were frustrated by the fact that Broncos and Bill Musgrave wouldn't play to that strength. The fact that Pat Shurmur did adjust things for Case Keenum to make it work for him in 2017, that's another thing on which I'm pinning hope for the next few weeks with Jeff Driskel.
If Pat Shurmur can get the offense going with Jeff Driskel, it will be payback to the Broncos or the false positive that he showed them of Case Keenum that cost them $18 million.
Maybe that's why Vic Fangio is so worried about potential false positives. He's like, did you guys just see what you had in 2018 here?
I think Vic's still burned by John Fourcade from 1989. That's the thing. Vic has a long memory.
Yeah, man, that feels like that was even before I was born.
Oh, yeah, me too.
And me, the old guy, actually remembers watching John Fourcade in person when the Saints played the Bucks in Tampa.
Well, you know what? That's why we have great perspectives on this show. All right, to those of you who are watching on YouTube, we'd really appreciate if you give us a thumbs up on this video and go ahead and subscribe to the DNVR YouTube channel. Right next to the subscribe button's a little bell. You click that, you're going to get an alert every single time we have a new video, which is always awesome for us. So we appreciate that. We appreciate everyone who's tuning in. Of course, as we get later in the week, tomorrow and Friday, we'll definitely zone in on the matchup with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers this weekend. Broncos have a chance to, just like the Nuggets, to get it to 2-1 and feel like they're right back in this thing. So we will catch you later in the week. We appreciate you guys for tuning in, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.